everyone, Karen Ann here from the Cut at Home Design Team. Today I'm going to give you some real basic tips and tricks that I've learned about coloring. I love to color. It's one of my favorite things, and so I thought I'd share with you some of my tips and tricks. The first one is that I always color on a cheap sheet of copy paper. It gives me an opportunity. You can see along the side here where I dab a little bit of color to just kind of see what the true color of something's going to be. If I go over on an image, it's not a big deal. So whether I'm doing alcohol ink marker coloring or Copic coloring or chameleon coloring, sorry, I usually color on a piece of white paper. The second trick is that I use high quality paper to color on. So the first example here, and this is a stamp from Penny Black. It's called Mimi's Love. Just love her. She is partially colored on Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor cardstock. Now, you know, it can get pricey to buy good paper, but Cut at Home has all kinds of great deals on pattern paper, and so save your money there and buy good quality cardstock to color upon. Once again, I colored this with Tim Holtz watercolor distress markers. Her dress is done in spun sugar, and the little bow there is broken china. And then I used picked raspberry for all of those hearts. And I was going to do with you today some of the skin tones. For skin tones, I use tattered lace, tattered rose, I'm sorry, and antique linen. And then I usually use some of the spun sugar for cheeks. And so where I'm going to put those shadows, I use a little teeny bit of the tattered lace, just where I want there to be a little bit of a cast shadow, because that's a bit darker of a tone. And then I use antique linen. And it's not ideal, but it's sort of the best combination I found for skin. I wish Tim would come out with, I already did her feet, with some good skin tones. Once again, I have this copy paper behind me so I can make sure my brush is cleaned off. This is just a water brush. And then you just drag the color into the middle, like so. Wherever there's already colored, be careful not to go into it, because I would drag that bright pink back into the image. And then on arms that are real small like this, I don't want to go over it many times because that space is going to get very wet. I am going to add a little bit of spun sugar for her blusher, and I'm going to take the ink right from the marker there and just sort of get some pink onto her cheeks. There. Then I'm going to do her hair, I think, in walnut stain. Is that what I got here? No. Yeah, that's walnut stain. And maybe some fossilized amber. So I'm going to start by drawing a few lines of the fossilized amber, and that'll give her hair a bit of a golden tone to it. And some walnut stain, primarily at the shadow marks. Okay. Take my water brush, make sure it's cleaned off, and then just drag that color up and across the fossilized amber. walnut color. With watercolor, it's kind of, you know, I don't worry too much about sticking right in the lines because you kind of expect it to go over a little bit, but I mean, it kind of adds to the prettiness of a watercolor painting, is that it's not quite as defined as some of the Copic marker techniques or chameleon marker. Okay. And with that, she is done. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to wait for her to dry. But then I did a basic card using Heartfelt Creations Birds and Blooms. And I cut these labels. I cut her and that pink label, which is pink cardstock, from Spellbinders Small and Large Labels is what they're called. It's these two, so that they fit tightly together. And I will just pop her up on here, and I'll probably add a little pearls. I also did another card using the same card sketch using Copic markers. And this is the little deer that's part of the Mimi's Love Penny Black stamp set. I colored in advance this with Copic, and I just wanted to do the little deer and make him pop up above, so I thought I'd color that with you. One really great way to deal with shading and blending with Copic markers is to actually fussy cut out your image, because then if you go off the edge, it doesn't matter, right? I have Copic E31, 33, 35, and 37 here to color with. And so I'm going to start with the lightest tone, the E31. I'm just going to color the whole thing. Once again, doesn't matter if I go off, in the lightest tone just to get some ink on there. Try to avoid that flower. And maybe the inside of her. Yeah, to the inside like that. Once I get the lightest tone on, get some ink on there, I'll be a little more careful. So that was E31. I'm going to take the highlight areas and make them much darker, and so this would be his inside of his ear. This is an E35. And do this area. Okay. And then to add some shadow, you have to think about where your light source is. And so assuming it's up over here somewhere, you still would have a bit of a cast shadow down here from the head. And maybe back over here, we've got some shadow going on, a little bit darker. And then I go back to my lighter tone to just blend it all in. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little bit of shadow up here in the ear. And then again the lighter tone to blend it together. Okay. I'm going to use E33. This is a sketch marker. I wish I'd have bought all of the sketch markers instead of some Chows and some sketch. But with the sketch markers, and especially a new one like this, if you take off both caps, it doesn't do that drip thing that it sometimes would otherwise do. Again, my light source is over here, so there's not going to be much shading on that side, but we're going to make this shading on this side a little bit bigger. Maybe from the ears a little bit. hole. And you just kind of pull in real light strokes. Again, up from the ears a little bit. Okay. Under the neck, because probably the whole back here. Just a little bit of a cast shadow and down the leg. Okay, put both of those caps back on. Go back to my lighter color to blend it in. One thing about working with alcohol markers, you don't really get the true look of it until the ink dries. And you shouldn't get, you know, real up close like this with your image, because nobody looks at your card that way. I have a hard time with that part of it. I tend to want to look at it very close. And of course, like I said, nobody does that. I used, on the rest of the flowers that I did for the image here, I used an RV52. Oops. Back here for this little pink flower. And when it's that small, I'm not going to try to shade too much. I used an E31, I believe, for the center, and then I just dabbed it on with the blender pen. The blender pen, by the way, I actually don't use to blend. I call it my eraser. It's great at helping to lighten something up or to get out mistakes. I think I'm going to use a darker brown. This is E49 Dark Bark, just to add those cute little hoofs with a dark so that they can be seen on all four legs, and a little bit of dark for the spots on the steer's back. Okay, with that, I'm going to pop it up right there. Gives the card a little bit of dimension and makes that adorable little deer stand out a little bit. Let me move my copy paper, bring out both of my cards. I thank you for watching today. For more information on the products that I used and for a list of all of my tips and tricks for coloring, be sure to check out the Cut at Home blog at www.cutatohome.com/blog. Stay crafty.